good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome serial entrepreneur, founder, and CEO of Rand Marine Technology, Richard Hardiman. So welcome, Richard.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Richard, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements and for the incredible work that you are doing to make a real impact on the world we live in. So can you share with us more about your entrepreneurial journey and how it started?
Sure. I think I've always been slightly entrepreneurial since I was a kid. I've always worked out ways to make extra pocket money by washing people's cars or coming up with a bunch of different ideas on how to make money on the side, those side hustles. So I think the current place where I am at the moment with our company, Rand Marine, started maybe 2014-ish. I'd just gone back to business school. I'd sort of skipped out on my formal education when I was younger. And I decided at the age of 32, 33 to go back and get a degree just in case. And I came out of that course with my piece of paper in hand, and then I thought, okay, now what? I sort of stumbled. I had a job which I was enjoying, but I quit that to start a new business, which was great fun, but lost a lot of money very quickly. And then in between that whole process, I came up with an idea of how to use robots essentially to remove trash and waste from water. I have a lot of ideas on a daily basis, but this is one that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
And I started playing with the idea of how do I get that financed? Where would I do it in the world? And when I first started out, I was in Cape Town at the time, and, in South Africa, and I kind of thought, well, I need to get some backing of this, and I went to a number of VCs, and not really knowing about that kind of entrepreneurial space. So I understood about how to start my own business with my own money, not necessarily how to start my own business with other people's money, which is two different things. If you have the money and you can start your own business, you don't have anyone to answer to but yourself.
Exactly. Which makes it easier in a way.
It does. There's definitely pros and cons. I like working collaboratively, so I've always liked to work with partners. But when you use other people's money, they want to know where it's going, where you're spending it, and you I think sometimes feel judged, which it
feels like you're in an exam or something.
It really does. You kind of think you're doing the right thing, and then somebody is saying, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And you question yourself. And I think entrepreneurs are often quite prone to self-doubt. Why is no one else doing this? Why is my business not working? Or why is that guy's business working and mine not? That kind of conversation. So when you've got the extra voice of the shareholders going, why are you doing this and that, not that? I think it adds to your weight.
Yeah.
But I managed to find an accelerator in Rotterdam that was quite keen on the concept that I had. I'd already built a prototype by this stage in my garage. I'd watched a bunch of YouTube videos and worked out how I can control this thing from my phone and make it. And then I arrived in Rotterdam at a maritime accelerator, not having been to Rotterdam too often. I think I've been here once before. And I booked into a really shabby motel, sharing my dorm with about 20 other Russian students, and me being in my late 30s at the time. Sleeping in bunk beds, definitely an eye-opener, but I didn't really have the budget to do anything else.
No, and you do what you have to do, right?
You really do, and I think you just get on with it. I think that's exactly it. Everyone else was. I arrived in the city. I mean, Cape Town or South Africa. There's no public transport, whereas in Europe, public transport is everywhere.
Yes.
And I had no idea how to use the metro. I had no idea how to cycle. I was too scared. It's very popular here, but so I walked from my motel to. Sorry, not my motel, my hostel, to the venue where we were doing this accelerator every day, which is about a 6-kilometer trip.
Wow.
But I was too embarrassed to ask how to use the metro. I wasn't too sure if I was going to have enough money. I had all these self-doubt things going in my head. Anyway, I was here for a week, met with a bunch of their mentors, pitched myself silly. I really learned in that week how to pitch a business. And that's where I say, kind of, before dealing with your own money, you don't have to pitch to anybody. You have to try and pitch to a customer maybe. But pitching is such an essential part when you're looking for money.
Yes.
and getting your
Absolutely.
story right, and how you put yourself across and what your future looks like and all those pitches take anywhere between, you get about 3 to 7 minutes to do that, which is
Yes.
never enough time, as you know. I mean, there's so much more you want to tell the person on the other side. But they drummed it into us in that week, how to pitch our story and what we wanted. And at the end of the week, we had to pitch to a jury, and then we would be either accepted into the accelerator or half the class would be gone. And I managed to get into that next round, which was great. Refine my pitching. And then, yeah, we had 3 months of this accelerator where I actually up sticks and I moved to Rotterdam. And then very quickly found my feet here. I think Europe is luxurious in the fact that there are a lot of people who are interested in innovation, particularly in innovation that we were developing. There was already a network of VCs and potential pilots that we could get into. And then my initial thought was to take all this and go back to South Africa. And eventually, after about 6 months here, I thought, no, I need to do this business here. So for the next 4 years, I went backwards and forwards because we never quite had enough money in the business to base myself out here full time. And I knew back in South Africa, if I was short of money or needed to raise more cash, I could do that back home. I couldn't do that here at the time, so I kind of balanced the two. And then in 2019, we got our first proper investment, and that kind of carried us over. So yeah, from an entrepreneurial point of view to where we are now, from it's been a hell of a roller coaster, as most of these journeys are. So I'm rabbiting on, but I think that people's success always looks very linear. From the outside, but inside it's you're fighting yourself out of a paper bag on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So having established multiple startups and helped scaling businesses since graduating, what would you say have been the most important lessons you've learned?
I don't know, there's a lesson, but definitely resilience and patience. I think those are two things. That the patience side, definitely, I'm a very impatient person. Which I think, again, most entrepreneurs are.
I'm exactly the same. Patience is not a strong point.
No, it's not. And sometimes you just have to let it be. It will happen. What you want to do in a week can be done in a month. What you want to do in a year can be done over 2 years if you do it correctly. And I think so. Patience for me has been a big thing. One of the biggest, I think, learnings is this is not the end. I keep saying, even when you're at the bottom, when you have no money and you're in debt, and if you think you're on the right track, and the market's proven that to you a couple of times over, you can fight through it and you'll get through it and win. That's not to say that sometimes we're on the wrong track, and you have to be reasonable with yourself and open to the possibility that actually what you're trying to achieve here is not a money-making venture. You need to get out of it and quit and move on. But I think resilience if you have some market acceptance, there are customers out there that want your product, and the only problem between getting to that customer and you delivering on that is maybe finance or a few tweaks that need to be made. Then resilience is definitely needed, and you need to keep it going. There's that great meme that's out there all the time, see over and over again, of the miner in the mine, the cartoon, where he's been going for years and he can't find it, but the diamond is literally one hit away from actually being revealed. And I think that sums up a lot of people's journey. You just got to keep going.
Absolutely. So in 2016, obviously you embarked on your most ambitious project yet, developing a waterborne drone that obviously harvests plastic waste from the world's ports, harbors, rivers, and marinas. So can you share with the audience more about this, and what was the inspiration and motivation behind it? And how did you actually come up with the idea? I know you touched on it earlier, but it would be nice to maybe elaborate a bit more.
So I just got out of one business, and I was a little bit wanting to know what to do next. And I was literally, I've told this story 1,000 times, so sorry if it comes across, but I think it's a genuinely good one. That I was literally sitting in the waterfront in Cape Town, and I was having a cup of coffee, and watching these guys try and take trash out of water in this boat. And I kind of and I wasn't particularly environmentally aware at that particular time of the plastic pollution problem.
Yes.
But I've always been my dad's an engineer, and I hate inefficiency, and I think I've got that from him.
Yes.
I was watching this process, and it was an inefficient process. It was just ridiculous. Like, if you're doing this job, you're doing it wrong. That's all I could see.
Yes.
And then I literally, on the back of a napkin, had a pen in my hand and started drawing about how I would solve this problem. Knowing, and I knew nothing about this problem. I had absolutely no clue. I'd never seen people pick trash out of water. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yes.
I didn't know if they were having a bad day and I was just watching a bad episode of them doing this or whatever. I just wanted to, in my mind, solve this problem.
Yes.
And it's something that didn't go away, and I just kept going back to it and going back to it. And then the more I looked into it, I found out more about the plastic pollution problem and the oceans. And I thought, shit, this is sorry.
No, that's okay. Podcast, it's all right.
This is a real problem, And if I could find a solution to this problem and perhaps make a business out of it, then I have a business, which is quite exciting to me.
Yes.
And I alluded earlier that I have 1,000 ideas a day, but most of those ideas I'm very good at quickly solving why they wouldn't work or why I wouldn't enter that space. Yes. And this is one particular one that I couldn't get rid of. It sat there for a good few months, if not a year.
Yeah.
And then I started building this prototype where I thought, okay, I got to the point where I figured out that if I could use a robot where you wouldn't have to put people in water to go and do this job, and you could make this robot intelligent enough to go and bring this trash back in, why wouldn't you use a robot, a drone?
Yes.
Drone technology back in 2014 wasn't what it is now, but I had an idea that it could be done. And I fashioned together this prototype that I literally Bluetoothed it to my phone. I built an app on my phone. I built a robot in the water, and I controlled it in our swimming pool, and I got that working. And I thought, well, if I can do it, there are people who are well more qualified out there that could make this thing really, really go. I've just got to find these people, and I've got to find the money. And that's what kept me going. I realized that there was a problem. I had a possible solution, and then I had a possible business, and that's where the cogs turned. And that's when I got into this accelerator. It wasn't as simple as that. I knocked on I don't know how many doors asking for money. And not really getting my concept across, not really going to the right investors, which is also key. And I mean, the luck has so much to do with it. Getting into this accelerator, I had just started in a new open planned office where I wanted some workspace to go, and I was working at home. I wanted to sort of, like, back when we could be working with other people, I got into one of these open planned offices where you like hot desks and stuff like that. Yes. And the day that I was there, the first day I was there, I told the person next to me what I was doing. And then I went out, and there was a phone call. It was like these phones that everyone answered. And it just so happened that the guy sitting next to me picked up the phone, and it was this maritime accelerator looking for maritime startups. And they were just phoning all these open planned offices, workspace offices, in the hope that they would find something. And this guy who sat next to me, I wasn't there, he just said, look, I think the guy who sits next to me, who's not here right now, has something that you might be interested in. I'll leave your number on his desk and we'll go from there. And what had happened was this accelerator had landed up in Joburg looking for maritime startups, not realizing that although Joburg, or Johannesburg, for those who don't know, is like the sort of business hub of South Africa, but it's not. It's landlocked. There's no maritime. We don't have ports there. We don't have anything, maritime related. And they quickly realized they were in the wrong city, and they were coming to Cape Town now to try and start these interviews. And I called back about a day later. I was quite laissez-faire about it, and the guy said, "Thank heavens you phoned, but I'm leaving for a plane in 20 minutes. If you can make it to." There's a great famous coffee shop there called Giovanni's. If you can make it to Giovanni's in 5 minutes, I'll listen to your pitch. And I did. I got in my car, I drove down there. I hastily printed off some stuff at the office, gave it to him. I said, this is what I want to do. Quite passionate. I think I have a business model. And he said, it's fantastic. Thanks for the coffee. I'm leaving for the airport. And I didn't hear from him for 3 months. So I kind of thought I'd blown my chance. Subsequently, I found out that he had been fired for smoking marijuana at work.
Oh, gosh.
But he had left his stack of papers and interviews on the guy that took over from him. He had left it on his desk, and this guy had gone through it and seen my piece of paper and thought, that sounds quite interesting. But this took about 3 months. And he phoned me up and he said, hey, this guy has left, but I'm quite keen. And then the whole thing started again. And
wow,
so,
that's amazing.
Talk about luck. It was one of those things that I feel was meant to be. And the rest was pretty much history. We got into that accelerator, the Port of Rotterdam funded us for a bit. And we went from what I like to believe is strength to strength. Yeah.
Amazing. So it's no secret that our oceans and marine life and the other various ecosystems within that are under serious threat due to the obscene amount of pollution in our oceans and rivers. So are you just one part of the solution to a big problem? And how and what more do you believe needs to be done? And are you planning on expanding your drone technology to help prevent such a growing threat in other areas, or is it just specifically on what you're doing?
Oh, great question. So I think we're definitely part of a solution. We're a solution that's amongst a lot of other solutions that are out there doing great things. We're definitely not the silver bullet. I think that's got to come from all areas. So we've got to use less single-use plastics. I'm personally not against plastic itself. We use it everywhere. It's more how we dispose of plastic and how we use it. I think that's the critical part. Plastic is actually a good thing. We use it for our computers, our cars, everything. It's not a bad substance. It's just how we dispose of that plastic.
Yes, absolutely.
That's our issue. So one of the problems is solving that solution, how we use less plastic. How we recycle plastic better. As for our solution right now, we're very focused on sort of stopping plastic getting into the ocean.
Yes.
Our next step would be to go into more offshore areas and try and collect more plastic there. Yes. That becomes a bit more difficult business-wise because when it's no one wants to pay for ocean to be plastic to be collected in the ocean. So I know one of our other solutions that we work with a lot, the Ocean Cleanup Project. They've gone into the Five Gyres and they're trying to collect plastic there, but it's an incredibly expensive business to go and do that and then haul that plastic back to land and then recycle that. The cost of doing that is massively expensive, and it doesn't make business sense or financial sense to do that. You don't make money from doing that, so you've got to rely on charity. You've got to rely on investment. People who are not expecting return on their investment, grants, that kind of thing. So that's a very difficult business to be involved in.
Yeah.
It's definitely an NGO space. So no government wants to pay for trash that's in the middle of international waters. Basically, it's why would they?
Yeah.
So it's a difficult space to be in. So we've concentrated on inland and sort of near coastal because there's a customer there that has to pay for that to be cleared up. I think going forward, though, we're very interested in developing more products that just make our water cleaner. One of the things that we found in the last 4 or 5 years of our existence is that it's not just plastics that cause pollution or toxicity in water. There's a lot of biomass, seaweeds and algae that are growing because we're using so many nitrates in our agriculture that are then going into our rivers, that are then going into our clean water. But these nitrates are creating more food for biomass to expand more quickly. And then that covers the surface of I'm being very, very high level here. That covers the surface of the water. It blocks sunlight. It destroys the ecosystem beneath it. Everything dies off. And those are things that impact our water systems and our ecosystems hugely. And that's something we don't look at enough. So we're starting to work on products that cure that problem as well. We see that as a big area of expansion for us. So not leaving the plastics entirely, but also what else can we do to clean water? And that's becoming more of our focus, I think, strategically over the next 5 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So as an entrepreneur, we know that this is a very tough and challenging path to take. So your journey has been anything but easy, especially in your current project. So can you share with us more about this? And when things got really tough, when was the turning point for you? Like, was there a specific turning point? I know you mentioned earlier some of the things, but, especially after going back and forth to South Africa and back to Europe.
Yeah, there's a lot of low points. I mean, I think there's financially, when you can't pay people or pay customers but pay, suppliers, that's hard, where you have this dream and everyone's in the press kind of celebrating, wow, you're doing this amazing stuff. And, back at the ranch,
Yes, behind the scenes, it's a different scenario.
Absolutely, and you've got to keep that public face going. We feel that you do because, otherwise your business will disappear or your potential business will disappear. But you want to be putting food on the table. You want to be paying your suppliers. You want to be paying your staff. There's been months where we've had to say to staff, look, we can't pay you. We don't want you to leave, but we also give you the option to leave if you want to. And unfortunately, we've never lost a staff member. They've always hung with us, and unfortunately, we're over that hump of not being able to pay people. But
yes,
there's been some really dark moments. I mean, having to leave family, for weeks and weeks on end, trying to make sure that they have enough food there, and I mean food. There's been months where
the basics.
Like, will your kids be fed? And I know I'm speaking from a very privileged point of view. We weren't living on the streets, but how do we get the next meal? How do I make sure that there's enough petrol in the car to get the kids to school?
Yeah.
It's fine for me when I was traveling because I'm okay. I could live off, a loaf of bread and, sleep in the office if I had to.
Yeah.
No one would really know. But,
and baked beans on toast.
Exactly. But when it comes to your kids and that kind of thing, you want more for them than that,
Yeah.
So I think that was the struggle. And I think, but you realize that I go back to this, it's never the end. What is happening now is not what's going to be happening in a day, a week, 2 months down the line, and we've had with our shareholders, we'll sit and go, okay, do we tell the staff that, this is it? We're not going to be able to do anything. We can't pay them next month. Right. And the very next day when we're about to have that conversation, suddenly a customer order comes in and everything's taken care of,
Yeah.
Those conversations you were dreading happening are suddenly solved. And it goes the other way. And sometimes you're expecting a big customer order to come in and you've got that planned and it doesn't come in. And then you're in the other, but I think if you look over a period of time, your ups and downs are not as great as you thought they were. I think I tend to be my own worst enemy, and if I'm my own worst enemy, there's other people who feel the same. That I've been through periods of self-doubt where you think this is it, we're just done here.
Yeah.
But you realize that you're not, and then you find a way out. And I think there's always hope, and you are pretty much in control of your own destiny to a point. What you control, when you sit there, when you sit there and you go, oh my word, there's no money coming in, I can't pay my staff. It's all falling apart. And then you step back and go, hang on a moment, how can I solve this? What can I do? How can I be in action to solve this? And I think that's the thing. Instead of where I used to wallow and go, oh, I'm going to die. I went through that.
Oh, trust me, I've had those moments many times.
but I've suffered from depression for years. And the problem is when you go into that depressive cycle, it's not easy to get up and go, okay, how am I going to solve this? Because you can't get out of bed. You don't want to face anything. It's that.
And you don't want to see people. You don't want to talk to anybody.
Absolutely. Respond to emails, SMSs. I mean, it's devastating.
Yeah.
And people around you can't understand it.
It's a very painful thing. It's actually something that I recall Elon Musk saying, is that, in the beginning, it's exciting for like the first several months.
Yeah.
But you will go through a lot of pain as an entrepreneur and especially as a leader. So it's hard.
Yeah. I think being in that leader position where you want to keep people motivated and going, but at the same time struggling to get out of bed and answer phone calls and make decisions.
Yeah.
That's hard. I was on medication for a number of years, but then I found I wasn't then getting the highs and the lows, so I wasn't able to.
It kind of just numbs you, right?
It really does. So you don't enjoy the highs and you can't feel the lows. So where sometimes you need to feel those lows because they can be motivating to get out.
Yes. Sometimes you got to dig real deep to find it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that there is room for prescription drugs to get you out of that real low. But once you find yourself climbing out, it's good to. I've tried everything from exercise to microdosing to everything, to kind of keep going now. But
I think exercise is critical though. Like that's one thing for me. Like even when you don't feel like doing it, like you just have to get up and you have to just
do it,
make yourself do it.
And again, it's difficult because if you don't want to get out of bed, but that release of endorphins afterwards is just
it's much better for sure.
Yeah. It's free drug, absolutely.
Yeah. So you're based out of the Netherlands, but obviously originally from South Africa. So what made you go to the Netherlands to produce what is called the waste shark, and which it has been exported to the US, UAE, India, Germany, and South Africa. So can you talk to us more about this, and how does the waste shark work for those who don't know?
Cool. So we ended up in the Netherlands purely because that's where the accelerator was, and I had to form a business here in order to take care of some of the acceleration equity requirements. Yes. And once I was here, I like the innovation side and the robotics and the maritime. I mean, that's really essentially what we're about. So they had the engineering and they had the thinking space around what I was trying to achieve. So I could employ people that were in that space, in the headspace, and in sometimes had actually studied for what I was trying to achieve. So it was very useful. Manufacturing in Europe, I would never, ever recommend to anybody, but that's just what it is.
Yes.
Labor is expensive because they're qualified, parts, time. It's expensive to manufacture here. So, I still have a dream of manufacturing in South Africa, but having the brains and the development here as well.
Yes.
Sort of trying to play both sides of the market a little bit. So but to get to your point about the how the waste shark works, I mean, we've kept it incredibly simple. I think a lot of times these things can be over-engineered, and at the end of the day, we're sending this product, as you mentioned, around the world. Yes. Whoever receives it should be able to use it fairly simply. It should be like a child's play to them.
Exactly.
So when I sat around the table, much like the table I'm sitting around now, with a bunch of really clever people and engineers, they say, oh, we can make it do this, we can make it do that. And I had to bring everybody back and just say, your customer, if I could paint a picture, could be a guy on the edge of Lake Malawi who's never seen a drone before but wants to clean up his area of the lake. And he has to be able to understand how that thing works in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Yes.
Breaks down, he has to be able to repair it because there's no drone repair shops on the edge of Lake Malawi. So we had to really go back to creating simple, easy to use products, which is actually harder sometimes. Sometimes easier yes. to just make things really complicated because people understand, or the people designing them understand its complex nature. To get it to move through the water, and maybe I should take a step back and say, so it moves through the water, it's semi-submerged, so it's about 30 centimeters of it is underwater, and it has a basket in front of it, and whatever's in front of it gets collected in that basket, and it's got a flap at the front that stops it going out if you're going in reverse. But it's as simple as that. It really isn't any more clever or more simplistic than that. It moves through water and scoops up trash, debris, biomass out of the water. And then you can control that with a remote control, much like you would do a remote control car or a drone nowadays. And you can steer that around. And then we have a more clever version that's autonomous, that has, you have a laptop and our back-end portal, and you program the route that you would like it to go on. And then it has a very clever system of communication between the portal and the actual craft. And on board is a LiDAR, which is like a light radar. So whereas radar emits sound and takes those sound waves back and plans where everything is, or sees where everything is. Our eyes on board is LiDAR, and that just essentially sends out a bunch of light beams. Those light beams bounce back onto it, and it kind of knows where it is, so it doesn't hit anything.
Okay.
So it becomes more clever in that respect, or more cleverer.
Yes.
It's as simple as that. You plan your route, it goes out, whatever's in front of it, it brings back to you. We don't send them out into, like if you had a whole lake in front of you, we would never send the whole thing to go and scour the whole lake. Wind, tide, waves push trash and debris into a certain area all the time. You know that you've got to go into that area to clean up the trash. And we get sort of, and that's how we create efficiency. We don't try and cover all the water space because we know that trash and floating debris is not in all the water spaces, in certain areas. So we program it to go in that area, or the operator will guide it into that area to clean it out.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. So one of the biggest known contributors to ocean pollution is discarded fishing nets. Is this a problem you will look at to help solve to assist the removal of fishing nets in the future, or is that just another whole area?
It's something that bothers me on a personal level. It really does, because
I mean, I've seen documentaries on it, and it's absolutely shocking.
Horrific. I mean, I don't think people understand sometimes the size of these nets. They are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of meters long. Yeah. And if they cut free, or they snag at the bottom, or they drag over coral, they destroy what's at the bottom of the water, and when they cut free, they destroy whatever's in its path. I mean, these nets just become floating nets for whales and fish, and they're killers. I don't know how you get rid of that, to be honest. And for me, it's something I would love to be able to solve. It's not part of our product roadmap, unfortunately, but on a personal level, it bothers me deeply, and it really is It is one of the biggest dangers I think that the ocean faces. I really do. Plastic is one of them. But these nets just, man, I mean, they are.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Yeah, if they're free floating when they've been cut, because sometimes these trawlers get snagged on the bottom, and then they don't want to because the nets are expensive, but they cut them free. If you have dolphins or whales or some mammal that's trying to breathe on the surface, you're drowning these things. You could go on for ages and ages, but it's an absolute tragedy.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. So that leads me to the next question. You've had a diverse career and were a former journalist and broadcaster, as well as a TEDx speaker, and recently became the recipient of the International AACSB, which is Business School's Most Influential Leaders honorary award in the category CSR and sustainability. So can you tell us more about this? And did this help you open up doors and other opportunities?
I think, look, I must also stress, when I got involved in this business, I knew nothing about robotics, AI, drones, or anything like that. So at the heart, I'm a business person. And I like to spot an opportunity, and sometimes you have to create that opportunity. So I think that's where if I know myself, that's where my strengths lie. I created this business because I saw an opportunity, and it's one of those great businesses that also solve a really, really crucial problem. So I get to have the best of both worlds in my life. I think the awards are lovely. I think they're great to be recognized in that respect, and I think particularly in leadership, it's nice to be seen in that space, and particularly by the GSP, my alma mater. I think that it was nice to be nominated and nice to be awarded that, for sure. But to be honest, that trophy or the award that I got now sits in my office and gathers dust. It's not something I look at all the time. I think the more people you had underneath you, or you want to be a better person for them. So I think sometimes you're thrust into this leadership role, and then people, like I was saying to somebody else the other day, our CTO, that I'm no longer involved in the hiring process in my business, which is a weird space to be, because I've hired every person that's come through the door. But now I don't know enough about the people we need to hire. So if our robotics team needs to hire a new person, I'm not the person to go, this is the right guy anymore, So I meet people. I mean, I had a really bad experience the other day where I was calling someone by the wrong name the other day because they just started. But I wasn't there for 2 weeks of their employment interviews and all that kind of thing. But then I also understand that because I haven't met them before, or they're not joining the company because of me anymore. And I don't say that lightly. Initially people join you because they're excited about you and what you want to do and achieve. Now they're joining the company because they like the company. Now, how do I become a more effective leader? And that's what goes through my mind, that they've joined this business not because they've met me, but because they like what the company does. And how do I be a better boss to them once they're inside this business? So I'm constantly trying to be a better person for the people around me. I mean, we have a very clear understanding that we employ people not because they're great at their job, but potentially they would be great at fitting in with our team. And I think that's something, the one thing that I thrust upon everybody is that you can have somebody who's absolutely excellent at what their job is, but they can be a narcissist, or they just don't engage, or, and then there's no point.
Exactly. Or they're not people and orientated. So.
And they can be the best at their job, but if they're not interacting with the team, or they're not building your business collectively, then there's no point. I'd rather have somebody who's 70 to 80% as good as them, but fits in with our team a lot better, because then it's not so much there's less problems, but there's less toxicity, there's less kind of having to handle issues. So we look for team players, and I know that's a bit cliche, but that's part of my leadership strategy, is not to employ the best people in the world, but employ the best people for us.
Yes, absolutely. So Rand Marine Technology has been able to disrupt this largely staid and closed maritime environment but has also been able to use the data to increase awareness around data in the sector. So can you share with us more about this for the audience that doesn't really understand?
Sure. So two things there. We're introducing a brand new technology, and as you quite correctly said, a very staid industry. So ports, a lot of our business are government, so they're very, there's a lot of administration, a lot of passing the buck, a lot of group meetings to decide to purchase your offering. And when it's a new offering,
is it quite political, may I ask?
It's not so much political. I think that there's a risk on the, if we're selling something to America, and normally they'd be buying a boat for this purpose, and they understand that because they bought boats before, and then people go on the boat and they collect the waste. So now you're saying, well, instead of doing that, we have an opportunity here and a product that does X, Y, and Z, does the same job, but it works very differently. And then they go, okay, you can see the internal monologue. That's a bit of a risk, because if it doesn't work, I've now signed off on this, and my job's, kind of, people are going to be looking at me going, why the heck did you spend all this money on this and not do what we normally do, which is buy a boat? So there's a lot of interrogation about how the product works, why it's better. And you have to jump through all of those hoops. I suspect that in 4 or 5 years, when this thing is everywhere, it's a lot easier to go, oh, they've got one down the road, I'll buy one as well. It makes sense. But right now, you're having to double sell them, not only on the concept and the innovation, but how it'll be better than what they currently have. And because the port environment is so safety conscious as they need to be, and is also run in a very closed kind of, you have to be one of the boys, sadly, still there, and that takes a lot of relationship and a lot of one of the boys or one of the girls, but it takes a lot of relationship building, and that takes time. So, we are disrupting it slowly. And I think we're proving ourselves. And the reason that the data is so critical there is that you're able to show data. So automatically it becomes a great value proposition to say to someone on the other end of the screen, as it is at the moment, look, we're going to give you this product. It's going to do what you want it to do, but it's also going to show you what's in the water. It's going to show you how dirty your water is or how clean your water is. And you're going to have that data for years to come. And each year you'll have more and more data, and you'll be able to see that as you clean the water, how much cleaner your water is at a DNA level. And that's a great proposition, that if you can give people the data, then their job's a lot easier. They can go back to whoever's questioning them and saying, yeah, sure, I spent a lot of money on this craft, but here's the data to prove how it's working. So I think those are that's where data becomes quite essential. And to me, the exciting part is we don't know what we're going to do with that data. So our customers know what they're going to do with that data. But if we're collecting data from all around the world, from different water bodies, and we're having this massive pool of data, how effective can that be? What can we do with that in 3 or 4 years' time? Can we create predictive analysis where we know that if there's a hurricane in Florida and 3 days of sunlight directly after that, that there's going to be algae blooms all around here, and that they've got to go and focus on cleaning up these areas before that damage happens? Can we get really clever with this data that we're collecting right now? So right now it's just ones and zeros, but I'm hoping in the future it's going to be a really, really powerful suite of information that we can offer our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about leadership. I know we touched on it a bit earlier, but I want to talk about leadership, or the lack of leadership, from an entrepreneurial and global perspective. So what do you believe you as a leader and innovator makes you different? And can you give us any examples? And what do you think needs to happen to change the current narrative?
I think mine is learned behavior. I think we're all, it's a great phrase that's been going around for the last year, the imposter syndrome. Where you feel like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why are people believing what I'm saying? And I think at the heart of it, you've got to know yourself a bit better and trust yourself. And maybe that's an age thing, or not an age thing, but as you go through these trials and tribulations, you know what you're good at, but more essentially what you're bad at. And they always say, without sounding like a self-help book, don't concentrate on the things you're bad at, on getting better at. Concentrate on the things that you're good at and get better at those, because that's really...
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
You're never going to solve the things...
Your weaknesses.
Right, I have bad handwriting. I've tried to correct my handwriting. I
Mm.
realized I'm never going to get, if I focus all my time on trying to get better handwriting, I'm going to miss out on a lot of cool stuff. So I now type stuff out. That's my sole.
Yeah, it's so much easier.
But I think from a leadership point of view, if I know that I'm bad I used to be very possessive. Like, no, that's my area of the business, and you can't do. If I'm not very good at that particular area of the business, I'll employ someone who's really good at that area.
Yes.
And that makes my business a lot better.
Mm.
And I've got better at reducing my ego. Not that it was ever massive, but my internal ego of like, oh, that's my part, and I want to control that area.
Yeah, I think we all have that.
Of course, and it's difficult to trust somebody else with your baby and with your vision. But quite frankly, I can't program autonomous robots. So I need to trust that I've employed the right person to go and do that and run that team.
Yes.
And I think that I've got better at that. I've still got to aid them. I'm still a better leader. I'm a better business person of that person that's programming those robots. So I'm okay. I'm in my comfort zone. I'm all right.
Yes.
And I think owning what you're good at and sort of handing out what you're not good at to other people who are good at it is a great strength. I can look at my financials for the business day in and day out, and I can spot the problems and I can spot the high points, but it's not something I want to do.
No.
So I hire an accountant who is very good at it and studied years, in university, because that's what they love to do. So
yes,
I will let them concentrate on that. And I think those are the things. The delegation part that I've learned is far better for me, because it frees up your headspace to be just a better person. I think
yes, absolutely.
I think letting go of that internal ego. Not everyone has that outward ego, but everyone has that internal ego of like, this is mine, this is my project. I don't want to let go of this. Release some of that, and I think that just leads to better things.
Absolutely. So what would you say some of your biggest career highlights have been?
Sure. I think inventing a product, I think is something, inventing a product that you can sell, and I think that for me is a huge thing. Although it's simple to work, it's an incredibly complicated project and product to manifest. And I'm incredibly proud of myself for coming up with that idea and then seeing it through to the point of execution.
Yes.
It definitely wasn't me alone on the journey, but without me coming up with that idea, I wouldn't be sitting in this office. We wouldn't have,
having this conversation.
Yeah, I mean, 15, 20 people have jobs now because of an idea that I had, so I wouldn't be having this conversation, quite right. So I think that is a highlight without a doubt. I think breaking free of being comfortable. I had a very nice cushy job in radio that I could have probably carried on for a number of years more.
Yes.
I think breaking free of that and going that there must be something else here is an accomplishment. It comes with a lot of hard-earned scars, but that is an accomplishment itself. I think going back to university at 32 is 33 years old.
That's quite something.
Yeah, and doing that with a family is something that takes guts. If I looked at anybody else, I would say it takes guts. If I looked at myself, I was like, okay, well, I did it. But I think that those are highlights. I've had other businesses that have failed, but were particularly fun. We started an online radio business that was way ahead of its time at the time, but the highlight in that of setting that up and making it work was fantastic. It was great fun. We made no money at all, but it was good.
Yes. Fun. But you enjoyed the process and the time.
I enjoyed the process, absolutely. Those little wins along the way are what keep you going.
Yeah, absolutely. So that leads me to the last two questions. What is your ultimate vision for the future? And what are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to other entrepreneurs? And what legacy would you like to leave?
So I think legacy and my vision of the future are probably tied in quite nicely. I don't mind if I'm not running this business in 2 or 3 years' time, but it's functioning, very well in somebody else's, whatever. I think the fact that we've created products that clean up the planet, in some small way, I think that's a great legacy to have. And my focus and intention is to create more products and more innovation in that vein. So that is our future at the moment is to work on this data side. We've got some really cool products that are coming out in the next year or two that are full autonomy, that just make cleaning water so simple and so easy. And I'm incredibly excited about that. And I think that if these products are around the next 50 years, and doing what they're doing, I think that'll be an incredibly excellent legacy to leave behind. Not only from a business point of view, but I think from a social, kind of like just a doing good side of things. I didn't set out to do good, but if these things are doing good, then that's fantastic. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think, and it's made me a better person because of the hardships it came with, I think. I think the three key pieces of advice, my first one is don't keep thinking about it. If you have an idea or you want to do something, do it. Because until you do it, it's just an idea.
Yes.
And ideas are everywhere, and
yeah.
even
it's the execution that counts.
Every time, yeah. Execution is taking action, and that's the step. And even if it's an idea that fails, that's okay. It might have failed because it was a wrong idea. It might have failed because you didn't think it through right. But guarantee your next idea that you act upon, you'll look at it differently, and eventually you'll get to that success stage. It's just about picking yourself up and doing it again, which is always easier said than done. But if you don't get it right this time, the lessons you learned doing it wrong the last time will definitely take you to the next high level. I think don't be afraid, because I see a lot of people sitting at their desks going, if only I had some money, or if only I could do this.
Yeah, and sometimes it actually has nothing to do with money.
Exactly. Money is actually normally the last thing. Money can be found. It sounds easy to say that, but money can be found. And I think most of the time the hardest part is to just go, I'm going to go and do this. And I wouldn't ever suggest just leaving your job this morning and going and starting this new business.
No, you have to have just some plan.
have a plan, but don't have the whole plan.
Yeah,
because that plan's never.
Because it never pans out exact.
So be prepared to change that plan. But I think if you have a plan, if you start it on the side, if you're able to, and you move forward, then you're on the right track. And I think the final piece of advice is that just don't quit. I think the quit if your business is not working, quit, but don't quit on starting a new business. Or I think if you're a natural entrepreneur, if this is not working out for you, ask yourself why, and ask yourself honestly why. And if you have to pack that business in and start again, well, that's part of being an entrepreneur. If you have to go back and get a job for 6 months, that's part of it. But if you want to own your own business and be your own person, I would, if you have that in you, don't quit. I see a lot of people giving up and just going back and becoming resentful.
Yes.
I think the hardest part is just, if it was easy, and it's such a cliche, but if it was easy, everybody
would be doing that. Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason why everyone's not doing it is because it has risk attached and it's not easy. But I think the highs are definitely higher. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Rich. Hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are. So if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
To get hold of me, or to see what?
Yeah, or just if they want to follow you on Instagram or see your.
So, absolutely. Instagram, I'm just at Richard Hardiman. Literally, you might be bored. There's a lot of pictures of my kids and my dog. Otherwise, rammarine.io is where we obviously function from as a website. Rammarine Technology on Instagram, and Rantech on Twitter is where you can follow us to see what we're up to and what crazy stuff we're up to next.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it, and best of luck to you as well. I know it hasn't been the easiest of journeys for you as well, so I'm glad to be talking to somebody who's been in the same boat.
Thank you so much.